Welcome, everyone, to Family Talk. It's a ministry of the James Dobson Family Institute, supported by listeners just like you. I'm Dr. James Dobson, and I'm thrilled that you've joined us.
Well, welcome back to Family Talk. I'm Roger Marsh, and so glad you've joined us again today. You'll recall on yesterday's program, we heard from former U.S. Congresswoman Michele Bachmann, who explained to us what is at stake for our country if we give our sovereignty away to the World Health Organization. Now, if you're not familiar with Michele Bachmann, let me get you up to speed. She served as a member of the United States Congress from Minnesota, serving in their 6th Congressional District as a Republican from 2007 until 2015. She also ran for President of the United States in 2012. Michele currently serves as Dean of the Robertson School of Government at Regent University. She's also a member of the Board of Directors here at the Dr. James Dobson Family Institute, and she serves as co-chair of the Jerusalem Prayer Breakfast as well. Michele and her husband Marcus have raised 5 biological children and 23 foster children. They are also the grandparents of 7. What a blessing in their family. Well, with today's important program, let's join our own Dr. James Dobson and Michele Bachmann right now, right here on Family Talk.
Our government, the Biden administration, is about to do something that will affect every family in the nation. Why don't you give us an overview of what's about to happen if somebody doesn't stop it?
Jim, what is about to happen is that the Biden administration is leading the charge at the United Nations. The healthcare arm of the United Nations is called the World Health Organization. And what the Biden administration wants to do is take United States decision-making authority and give it to the United Nations. The Biden administration is proposing amendments that would transfer the sovereign authority of every nation to make decisions over health care. And that decision-making power would transfer to the World Health Organization. What does this mean? Well, just think about the last 3 years under the COVID pandemic, where we saw local governments, state governments, our federal government make pronouncements that businesses had to close down. We were all told we had to sit at home with the doors shut for 15 days to slow the spread. Well, we've passed 3 years now since that happened, and we still are living under those emergency powers. It is an extraordinary, breathtaking level of power that the United States government took over its people in the last 3 years, closing down businesses, closing down schools, mandating that people had to get shots, whether they thought they needed them or not, mandating that churches had to close. This level of emergency power is what I'm talking about, Dr. Dobson. And the Biden administration wants to take that power and give it to the World Health Organization, the UN.
Unbelievable.
And now they would have the power to shut us down in the United States and tell us if we have to have a shot in our arm, or tell us if we have to wear masks, or a number of other things they would have the power to do. Effectively, Dr. Dobson, that is transferring sovereignty over the United States to the UN. And for the first time in history, we would create a platform for global governance. Just this week when we're recording this show, Dr. Dobson, not once but twice, the head of the Communist Party of China, Xi Jinping, himself said that China will be leading the global government. In reform and governance, Communist China will lead. And they're serious about that because they're the ones who control and direct the World Health Organization. In the last week of May in Geneva, Switzerland, the World Health Assembly will meet. All 194 nations are there. And the Biden administration has been trying to persuade all of the nations to get together and agree to transfer sovereign authority to the World Health Organization. And when they do that, transfer that authority, it won't mean that we'll have co-authority. It will end our authority. And I'll tell you, Dr. Dobson, the number one thing people ask me when I tell people about this is they say, well, Michele, how will it be enforced? How could the UN possibly enforce that on us? Look at the last 3 years, because the Centers for Disease Control here in the United States, whatever the World Health Organization issued, that's what our American Centers for Disease Control did. In fact, even look at corporations, Facebook, Twitter, whatever the World Health Organization told us to do, that was the standard that Facebook followed and Twitter followed and Google followed and Instagram followed and corporations, national corporations followed it. Even Fox News, even national TV shows, even radio shows. If the World Health Organization said it, it was enforced. So we've already been there. We've already done that under the Biden administration. And Jim, even as we are recording right now in the United States, do you know that we are still living under emergency powers? The Biden administration has never given back the emergency powers in 3 years. At this point, the president's emergency powers are set to expire May 11th. We'll see if they do. But what President Biden is hoping is that he can get amendments passed in Geneva, Switzerland in May so that we could transfer U.S. authority to the UN and be done with it forever. That will change us forever. And the only thing that we can do to stop this and get out of this is for the United States to get out of the World Health Organization. We need to exit. We can. We need to stop giving them money, but we need to legally notify the United Nations that the United States intends to leave the World Health Organization. Then we will not have to be under any of their dictates.
Well, Michele, we're talking to a lot of Smiths and Joneses out there who have no idea what to do. They've heard what we've said today, and they're very concerned about it, but they're not involved in government, and they have no idea how to let their voices be heard. They're faced with something that could have major implications for the integrity of their family and for the future of this country. Where do they start to let their voices be heard and to use their influence?
Well, where they start is you can certainly call the Congressional switchboard number, and you can tell the operator where you live. They'll immediately direct you to your congressman or congresswoman or your senator. And then you can tell them that we have to get the United States out of the World Health Organization, and you're demanding that they do that first and foremost. Then you can tell your pastor, and you can tell your pastor that we've got to make sure as a congregation we do something. But most important of all, the most important call we make is the one to God, because that line is always open. And I want to tell everyone, God has not abandoned us. That's a promise for all time. He has not abandoned us. He has unfurled his banner over everyone listening right today. That banner that he has unfurled over us is love. He loves us. He has not abandoned us. Bad people do bad things. So that's why our God saves, and we cry out to him for his deliverance. That's not a small thing, that's everything. It's everything. And that's why we don't despair, we don't fear, we cry out, because it's always impossible situations when you see the right arm of a holy God prevailing.
I'm Roger Marsh, and you're listening to Family Talk. Just jumping in here for a moment to remind those who are just joining us, our special guest on the program today is Michele Bachmann, former representative of Minnesota's 6th Congressional District. She currently serves as Dean of the Robertson School of Government at Regent University. And today, she's explaining to us what we can do to prevent our country from literally giving away our sovereignty to the World Health Organization. This is a very important discussion, so without further ado, let's rejoin Dr. James Dobson and Congresswoman Michele Bachmann for the conclusion of this conversation right here on Family Talk.
Michele, let me tell you what I'm thinking. This situation is so dire with the possible loss of our sovereignty to communist China, of all places, in an area as important as our health care, I can't understand why others aren't agitated by this. Where is Congress? Why are they not fighting the World Health Organization proposal on our behalf? Where are our representatives on this issue? And what in the world's going on with our president?
I can tell you, having served in Congress and being in that environment, I don't say this to be mean, but usually members of Congress are the last ones to know. They're so taken up with raising money and flying back and forth to D.C. and all the constituent meetings that they have to have. A lot of them just don't have time to do a lot of reading. And this isn't something that the Biden administration has been waving around for everybody to know. They tried to do this under the radar. They didn't want Congress to know about this. Well, now because of the James Dobson radio program, millions of people are going to know about this. And so that's why we need to not just hear, we need to also act. And so if the congressional phone lines melt down and the members of Congress hear that the Biden administration is about to give away our sovereignty to the UN over healthcare decision making, and not just healthcare, it'll end up being over economics, over every decision, over even the right to travel. Once people get their member of Congress and tell them what's going on, then these congressmen will pay attention. Then they'll do something. I've seen it. I've been in the office when my phone has rung off the hook because Dr. James Dobson called the body of Christ to act. In fact, I've been in my office so late that literally all night I could hear the phone ringing. And so does it make a difference? You bet it makes a difference. But again, we all have a different sphere of influence. You have no idea who you talk to about this, who actually may know somebody who can really do something. So we need to talk about it, and then we just act. We pray, and we make that phone call, and it will make a difference.
Well, let's tell our listeners how they can get this done. I'm about to give a phone number. I hope you'll write it down, where you can reach both houses of Congress, the Senate and the House of Representatives. One number, here it is, 202-224-3121. That's 202-224-3121. Let's light up the switchboard. I'd like to make it smoke. That's happened on occasion when people were concerned enough to call. You can perhaps talk to a staff member. You might even get through to a representative. But whatever you do, do it now and don't wait till tomorrow or the next day. Michele, is there anything else you would like to suggest?
Well, I'll tell you, there are also people who are fasting and praying right now. And I think that that is something that I would really encourage people to do, to fast and pray and make this phone call, because confession of sin and repentance, turning back to God, God looks on that with favor. This has happened before in many nations where nations have gone into decline. But when a nation turns back to God, God hears, and sometimes he relents. And so that's why I want to encourage everyone, fast, pray, cry out to God, make that phone call, and I truly believe that the Lord hears us when we cry.
You are so right. God is the only one who can save us now, and prayer is always part of the equation. So tell our listeners what to say when they call their representatives to express their concern.
When people call, they need to say, we don't want President Biden giving away national sovereignty to the World Health Organization. If you don't want to say that, just say, I demand that you get the United States out of the World Health Organization. Don't do one other thing. Get us out of the World Health Organization, and we need to stop giving them money.
And the World Health Organization is controlled by Communist China, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Communist China really directs the World Health Organization. Even though the United States is the #1 contributor to the World Health Organization and Bill Gates is the second biggest contributor, China is the third, but China really controls the organization. The acting general of the World Health Organization is a man from Ethiopia named Tedros. He's very controversial. He has a highly controversial, negative background, but he is the man who was just reelected to that post for the next 5 years, and he really acts at Communist China's direction. So this isn't an American organization or an American-dominated or run organization. It is dominated and run by the Communist Chinese. And the Communist Chinese see America as their number one enemy. So we can imagine that any decision that will be made will be to hurt us and weaken us, not to build us up. And again, this has nothing to do with healthcare. This is everything to do with control. Control of the American people, control over our economy, and control over our way of life. That's what this is, to put us into a global governance system. And for the first time in history, this transfer of sovereignty creates a platform for global governance. That's why this is so serious.
I want to tell you now that I resent the President of the United States, Joe Biden, for doing what I consider to be a sneaky thing here, trying to push this through before the American people really know about it.
Well, you know, Dr. Dobson, last year at this time, we just found out, we didn't even find out until April of last year at this time, that the Biden administration was working behind the scenes at the World Health Organization to transfer this national sovereignty last year. And so last year I was out trying to do as much media as I could. Other people were doing the same. We were crying out to God. And do you know, it looked like it was going to go through last year. And one country, Botswana, in Africa, objected, and this didn't go through. I was just amazed how God used a country like that to stop this, and a few other small African countries. Well, this came back again this year. We didn't know what was going to happen, but it came back again. And they believe that they're going to be successful this year. I don't know that they will be successful. If people rise up and act and do something, they won't be successful. But we have to get the attention of our leaders in America, because once this transfer authority goes to the UN, there's no appeal. There's no right of appeal. If they say churches have to close, churches will close. As we speak here today at the beginning of April, people need to understand the sense of urgency. This can all happen the last week in May. So very little time remains.
Who would have believed, Michele, that America could have closed its churches in the last couple of years?
And that should inform us of all of these things that we couldn't believe. Abortion clinics were allowed to stay open. Gambling casinos were allowed to stay open. Big box retailers that had a grocery store could stay open. But mom and pop stores had to close and people lost everything. And that's why I say none of this was legal. The vaccines weren't mandated by a law. They were mandated because the Biden administration said they were mandated. It wasn't a law. So the vaccines weren't a law. The masks weren't a law. The lockdowns weren't a law. Closing down schools wasn't passed by a law. Closing down churches didn't happen by a law. It was completely unequal application of justice. It was raw political will. And that's what we're seeing in this action today from the Biden administration. The worst possible step, which is raw political power to do what they legally are incapable of doing because they don't have the people's consent to give away American sovereignty to the United Nations healthcare arm to make decisions that will change us forever. They would even be empowered to force the United States of America to spend money to buy things that the UN tells us that we have to buy in order to give it to other countries. That's one of the amendments. That's what we're talking about. So they're looking at true redistribution of wealth, true global government, and China has said they will be the ones to run it and control it.
Well, you've been listening to the Honorable Michele Bachmann, who's been like a voice crying in the wilderness. I do hope and pray that you will take her advice and do what she suggests. It's our only hope, or at least the only one I see. We must inform the American people, and especially Christians, of what hangs in the balance here. You can bet that if we lose this battle, other freedoms will also be lost as well. If you can deal away the sovereignty of the American people and get away with it, it's going to happen again. So we're out of time for now, but again, that phone number to call is 202-224-3121. Call your congressman or senator today and tell them how you feel about this World Health Organization issue. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you, Michele, for your participation. Sorry for my scratchy voice, but I think the word got through. Thank you once again. We appreciate you more than you know.
Thank you, Jim.
The dangers are real of what hangs in the balance for the future of our country. Let's all be in earnest prayer, asking the Lord to move and intervene in our midst. I'm Roger Marsh, and you've just heard the conclusion of a two-part conversation featuring Dr. James Dobson and former Congresswoman Michele Bachmann. If you'd like to go back and listen to this interview again or to share it with friends and family, just visit drjamesdobson.org/family talk. That's drjamesdobson.org/family talk. Or you can listen again or share today's episode on the official app of the Dr. James Dobson Family Institute. The newest version of the JDFI app has just been released, and it allows you to personalize the content you receive, making it easy to listen to or to share the latest Family Talk radio broadcasts, as well as hundreds of archive programs as well. Create your own JDFI account to save your favorites and set your preferences. You can also receive biblically sound marriage advice and read and share beautiful gospel messages with your family and friends. But please remember, you will need a mobile connection or Wi-Fi internet to access content on the app. To get the newly updated JDFI app, just visit the App Store on your smartphone. Search for James Dobson Family Institute to download, and then start your Christ-centered journey today. Before we leave the air for today's program, I do have a difficult subject to bring up and discuss with you. It's an important issue that's affecting so many marriages and families and kids today. I'm talking about the threat of pornography. It's invading your home, perhaps your marriage, and it's stealing the hearts and minds of our children and teenagers as well. Here at the JDFI, we have created an excellent resource to equip you to combat this sin and protect your family. It's called A Parent's Guide to Pornography. But remember, this could be a grandparent's guide as well. To receive your downloadable anti-porn parenting guide, just go to drjamesdobson.org/anti-porn parent guide. That's drjamesdobson.org/anti-porn parent guide. You can receive this valuable resource immediately and confidentially. Of course, if it's easier, you can call us at 877-732-6825, and a member of our staff will be happy to send it to you via email or through the U.S. mail at no cost to you. Please prayerfully consider how you might use this clear-cut PDF with practical biblical perspective to talk with your kids and grandkids and guard your family. We pray it'll be a blessing to you and yours. Again, the number to call is 877-732-6825. Now, before we close, I do want to share a need we have here at the JDFI. As you know, we are a listener-supported broadcast outreach. And like so many people all over the country are experiencing right now, we are also feeling a bit of a financial squeeze. Now, no doubt if the Lord placed it on your heart to assist us, I promise that we will steward the monies well and put them to good use. I also understand you might be in a position where giving is just not possible right now, and that's fine. Please know that we are praying for you and trusting that God will meet all of your needs with His grace and blessings. And we appreciate your prayers for our ministry as well, because we are truly in this together. By the way, to learn how you can support the JDFI financially, just visit us online at drjamesdobson.org. I'm Roger Marsh, and from all of us here at the JDFI, we thank you for your prayers and your support, and may God continue to richly bless you and your family for such a time as this. Be sure to join us again next time right here for another edition of Dr. James Dobson's Family Talk.
This has been a presentation of the Dr. James Dobson Family Institute.
Hi, I'm Dr. Tim Clinton for the James Dobson Family Institute. Who inspires you on matters of faith, family, and culture? If you don't already get it, sign up for Dr. Dobson's monthly newsletter at drjamesdobson.org. Each month, you're going to receive insight and news that impacts your family and solid advice that you can trust. Whether it's wisdom for parents, tips for building a lasting marriage, or discernment on issues your family may be facing, you're going to find direction, encouragement, and more every month. Visit drjamesdobson.org and sign up for that monthly newsletter today. And again, that's drjamesdobson.org. You'll be glad you did.